Hey everybody, this is Vince Miller. Thank you so much for joining me for some more time right here in God's Word. Our call out today goes to all those men that are signing up for our training event in Florida. I am pumped about this event. If you want to lead men, want to know how to do that, want to start your own ministry of any kind with men, join us for this event. It's going to be a great time over a couple of days in Ocklawaha, Florida. So if you live in the Florida area and you have yet to sign up, I want to encourage you to do that right away. Today we're going to be in Nehemiah chapter 13. I'm going to read verses 10 through 14. It reads, I, Nehemiah, also found out that the portions of the Levites had not been given to them. Shame on them. So that the Levites and the singers who did the work had fled each to his field. So I confronted the officials and said, sometimes a little confrontation helps, doesn't it? Why is the house of God forsaken? And I gathered them together and set them in their stations. So he brings it back to do their work. Then all Judah brought the tithe of the grain, the wine, and the oil into the storehouses. In other words, he makes them retithe because they had been neglecting this. And I appointed as treasurers over the storehouses Shelemiah the priest, Zadok the scribe, and Pedaiah of the Levites, and as their assistant Hanan the son of Zaccur, son of Mattaniah. Boy, I got through those names. That's great. For they were considered reliable, and their duty was to distribute to their brothers. Remember me, O my God, concerning this, and do not wipe out my good deeds that I have done for the house of my God and for his service. I love that Nehemiah throws that in. So what is happening here is that Nehemiah discovers that the Levites were not receiving their allowances for temple service so that they could actually attend to the duties in the temple. So let me break this down for you and make it simple. There were two major groups of people who served in the temple. One, you got priests, and on the other hand, you got Levites. Priests perform things like sacrifices and rituals and kind of were mediators between God and the people, and then taught the people the law of Moses. Levites, on the other hand, were kind of the support system for the priests. They helped with temple service. They were involved in worship, in singing, and other administrative tasks. Both had to work together. Now, the primary difference was really ancestral, not just their workload. Priests were born from the lineage of Aaron. Levites were born from the lineage of Levi. So in this situation, the Levites weren't being cared for financially by the people, so they had to go back to civil work, which took them away from their religious work. Thus, the temple service was being neglected, and priests were bearing the load because the people were not giving sacrificially as directed by the tithe. So here is the lesson. Sometimes what appears to be practical and frugal in God's work is not always right and righteous, is it? What appears to be practical and frugal is not always right and righteous. So here's what I mean. God always wants us to give him our best. And sometimes in giving him our very best, we're pushed to the limits of our reasonable ability. Now, we don't always like this because we trust our reasonable ability more than we actually trust God. But when we push our reasonable limits to actually live in obedience, we push ourselves sacrificially into the hands of a great and trustworthy God who gives unreasonably to unreasonable people. It is here in this moment that we experience faith. And this is what Nehemiah wants from the people. He wants them to give God their best, stretching their practical limits just enough so that they'll live by faith, trusting that in giving God their best, financially, the tithe, in the administration of the temple to the Levites, that God is going to actually provide for them. Now, I think most believers miss out on this because they only give God what is practical and what is reasonable. So maybe for you, it's time to be unreasonable. So be more unreasonable today with your time and your talents and your treasures. And don't be stupid, but be more unreasonable, because our understanding of unreasonable is usually just being faithful to a trustworthy and a generous God. I love you guys, and I pray this has blessed you. If it has, share it with someone else. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Maybe a little bit more faithful and unreasonable. We'll see you then.